Well, I'm glad you're here. You want to learn about controls. Let's figure it out. So a control in Power Apps, in my own words, it's the stuff you put on the screen, right? It's out of the box components that they provide you in Canvas Power Apps, like pictures and attachment controls, barcode readers, all kinds of fun stuff. There's tons of controls, and I just want to touch on a few because I think it's very important to understand how to navigate Power Apps and how to insert controls, because that's kind of like step one. So I'm showing you here the learn.microsoft.com page of filtered for controls and the properties. Always recommend going to the source, so go to Microsoft's documentation and check this stuff out. But I kind of want to show you on the page what these controls look like and how they work. So first, I went to make.powerapps.com. Here I am. I added a new Canvas app. Hopefully you can get to those steps. If not, you'll figure it out. But first thing I want to show you is kind of the navigation here. And we're going to start with controls, right? So there's two ways to insert controls. There's a little insert tab right here. And also on the side, you have the insert capability on this little left menu, far left menu here. So if I click insert, you can see it pulls a little drop down and it's got this popular section at the top. These are your popular insert or input controls. You can see text label, forms, text input, so on and so forth. Same thing over here. When I click on this insert menu, it's just, has the popular controls, and it has input controls like buttons, pen inputs, display controls like text labels, HTML text, layouts like galleries, those are important. Media controls, again, like images, and lots of fun stuff like icons and shapes and charts, AI builders, mixed reality, all that kind of stuff. So I highly recommend when you first get started, just go in and start inserting controls and kind of mess around with it so you get the feel of what possibilities and capabilities you can have with Power Apps. But right now, I want to just insert a text label because I want to show you how controls work, generally speaking. So I clicked on the page, I went to insert, and I inserted a text label. So when I go here to my tree view, you can see under screen 1, I just have label 2. I opened label 1 earlier. But here we are with label 2. So the idea is you have properties in that control that you can access here. So if you look, I have properties selected up here at the top tab. It's kind of bolded here, so you know you can access those properties here. But then you also have the ability on this drop down to access all the properties that this text control or this text label control has available. So that's how you update stuff in Power Apps, is through the properties. And it can be static, right? Like right here, you see I have text it just says text, but I want to change the text. And I close away from that, and you can see, oh, cool, it updated. It changed the text to change the text. And it's in these quotation marks here. And you can see I can access the same information here on this dropdown. I can change it in the formula bar to change the text in the formula bar. I don't have to hit enter there, but I did for fun. And you can see, hey, wait a second, this dropped the text down, even though I didn't have an enter, right? Because the text is a fixed width. And you can see I can access the width over on the side, and it says width is 150. I can manually change it here. Let's do 250. I'm going to hit enter. Oh, it's not quite large enough. Let's do 500 and hit enter. All right, cool. I got that to go wide enough to where it's on one line. Now, if you notice, if I go up here to this drop-down box, text is bolded and so is width. So when you update something, you can see that it'll bold out in here in the drop-down so that you can basically know what you changed. So pretty cool. You can kind of go through all of these properties, but it's generally laid out on the properties side here with the tab First tab is display, and it's got, you know, all of the sort of font and style display for the properties, then the position, the X and Y value, the size, the width and height, and then the padding. That's obviously like the distance between these edges on the left, the right, the top, and the bottom, or it's laid out here, top, bottom, left, right. Then the color, that sort of thing, and then other properties like if you have your text label disabled, you can change the colors. But one thing I do want to point out here is, again, you can access all the properties you want from this dropdown, but you can also, and that'll change it to where it's displayed up here in the formula bar, but I can also just click the formula bar or access the formula bar by clicking on the actual name of the property. And you can see it sends it up here. It says I have a width of 500, and that sounds good to me for now. The other thing, again, is the tab will be on display by default, but let's click the advanced tab. And you can see here that it's got more properties that we can access, like an action. So let's say I click on it, that's the on select. Data, like the content language, role, text. If you want to have a tooltip, as in you hover over it and it displays some information to the user. And again, that design stuff that I was talking about on the display, and cascading down here all the way down to the Y value. So one last thing I want to cover right here. Again, I clicked on this width, right? And it sent it up here. And we talked about, you know, making it a static value. This is where we can start getting a little tricky with it. So I can reference the screen by saying parent, because it's nested under screen 1. So instead of calling out screen 1, I can just reference parent and say dot width. Oh no, it's spilling over, right? It's off the page. So then maybe I can say, okay, take away self dot X value. So that's cool, but you know what? It's not really centered anymore, right? So you can start getting a little tricky with your scripts here. And you say, I want parent.width minus myself.width. Well, because it's width, it's X, but you get the idea. I'm really trying to show you that you can sort of manipulate and make things dynamic. So let's say I want this to be parent.width, and I want it to be like 90%. And there you go. And then it's like, well, how do I center that? You could sort of drag it around, right? Get it to the center, sort of like any other Microsoft product. It'll kind of show you sometimes it's not cooperating, but it'll kind of snap and show that line in the center. But I could also, again, just put in the X value what I was trying to do in the width, because it wasn't thinking. I want the parent.width, take away self.width divided by 2. And that's going to put it right in the center. So that's kind of just getting you started with controls. And I only put in the text control, but I think it's a good start. Kind of mess around with inputting controls, accessing the properties from either the right side by filtering here for the properties, or accessing the properties from that dropdown. Put some controls in, start messing around with it, get familiar, and we'll chat more about controls and how to make things do what you want in Power Apps later. So thanks for checking out controls with me.